If you're innocent, he's just the protection you want and all the protection you'll need. But if you're guilty, pray the cops find you before he does. Welcome to I Hope You Suffer.
Wow, that was really unnecessary.
The other three are just like justice with a vengeance. If society won't punish the guilty, he will. And then judge, jury, executioner, all in a day's work.
Oh, you know him.
Yep.
Friendly neighborhood Punisher.
This is episode 335. If I suffer. Boaz Yakin.
Is that the guy that rhymes?
No, that's the writer of the movie.
Oh, I'm the guy that rhymes. I'm Punisher's sidekick that rhymes everything.
Hell yeah.
Scrappy, his name's probably.
I don't remember what his name is.
Like...
We are going to talk about 1989's The Punisher. The Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, which is a banger. That I've seen a bunch of times, but also do not remember most of every time I watch it. I think his name's Shake.
I literally was about to say, I think it's Shake. I'm Shake Master.
Normally this would have probably just been like a Patreon episode.
Yeah.
But fuck it. Dolph Lundgren deserves main feed. Was this the first time you've seen this movie?
No, but technically yes. Like, I've definitely seen it before, but I did not remember a single thing. I think I've seen, like, the first, like, the 2004 Punisher movie, probably, like, the most out of these, so...
I have not seen any of them except this Dolph Lundgren one, so...
Oh...
I don't like, well, like the Thomas Jane one,
yeah,
I've always heard is terrible. And so I never really bothered. But I've heard Warzone is supposed to be pretty good, or maybe it's vice versa. I don't remember. I think Warzone is the one I always hear people be like, actually it's secretly pretty good.
I kind of just like all of them, and it's been kind of a while since I watched. So the 2004 one is the Thomas Jane one, and I don't know, like I feel like we don't really talk about the Punisher a lot, like as far as our like bonus episodes go, but I love the Punisher as like a character. He's definitely one of my favorites, but I, aside from like going on and on about the Punisher
TV show, I don't feel like I talk about Punisher that much outside of it, but he's like definitely one of my faves. So I think that I enjoy all of the live action movies. Like, are they the best thing? Like, obviously probably not, but like I have pretty good memories of both of them. It's been a while at this point, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and like stand by both of them. I wanted to rewatch them for this, but like, you know, life. Yeah. I did manage to watch this one again. You're right though. This is like one where like I watched it when we were originally going to record like a week ago, and then I was like, I kind of don't remember anything that happened. So then I rewatched it today. I do have notes, so we can do that. But I don't know. This is one that like I have watched so many times. And I love it, but it's also just one of those ones where, like, when I'm done watching it, like, outside of, like, a couple scenes, nothing really sticks in my brain. And I think it has to do with the fact that, like, it's one of the, it's a very, it's very much a 80s, early 90s comic book movie where they were, like, terrified of, like, making it look comic booky.
Yeah.
And so, like, it doesn't, it's like, it plays like I think Dolph Lundgren is a pretty good Frank Castle. But they do the thing where they're like, oh, we can't do like the skull logo on his chest. That's goofy. Or like the white boots. So we got to make him just look like a regular guy.
and shit like that. Like they would like, you know, like the first X-Men movies like that where they're like, they even make the joke like, what are we gonna wear, like yellow and blue spandex?
Spandex, yeah.
And shit like that where they just, you know, now they they try to do sort of comic book accurate ish with stuff.
Yeah.
And like, so I don't know, and like it's I think like they get the tone of the Punisher pretty well in this movie, but it's just one of those things where like you watch it and you're just like, I don't know, this could be literally any generic movie. Action movie outside of it being Frank Castle's the name, and like, you know, you get a brief glimpse of a Punisher skull on like his knife or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, this definitely leans towards being just like a straight up like crime thriller, because but yeah, you're right. The main character is Frank Castle, and then like it follows very much like a plot of like like a comic book where it's like the Japanese are the bad guys and there's like a crime syndicate happening. And like, you know, there are definitely, I'm sure we've talked about this before, like two kinds of like genre of superhero, where it's like the ones who are like fighting aliens who have powers and like they're doing all this crazy stuff, and then there's like the regular people who are dealing, well, I'm going to consider Daredevil as like a quote unquote regular person who are fighting like actual real life like crime syndicate people that have like maybe superhuman strength or something like that, you know, like some of the people, Lady Tanaka and like her daughter or whatever, like martial arts masters or whatever, but that's like something a real person could do. So like I guess what I'm saying is that like I think that aside from the fact that they don't have him wear, like he's not wearing like a superhero costume, but aside from that, like I think they did a pretty good job of like capturing the essence of it, which is just like this sad dude killing criminals. But
for me, I think this is at least the best movie representation. Like I said, I haven't seen the other two movies, but like I feel like it's on like, I feel like outside of like the John Barenthal version, which like is a different beast because he gets like 2 seasons and like is in the Daredevil show of like just getting to like play that character. He gets like way more time. Like I feel like this does a pretty good job, and like I tried to get to watch the I forget if it's the director's or uncut version, because I think there's 3 versions of this.
Wow.
That have been like released throughout the years or like screened or whatever. But Internet Archive has one of them that takes like, instead of having the flashbacks to like what happened to his family like interspersed throughout the movie, it does it a lot more like chronologically. So you start with like him like his family being killed and then like going into being the Punisher, instead of it just being kind of like cut within. And I think there's just like some more violence or whatever just like edited in. Like I think there's only like 10 minutes of extra footage you get or something. And I really wanted to watch that because everyone said, like, everyone I've like, when I was reading about it said it's like a better version.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. I really like this movie. I remember when I first, like when the MCU stuff was first taking off, I was like, oh, I'm gonna see if I could find like all of the old Marvel stuff on like DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, and like discovering this and the David Hasselhoff and Nick Fury made for TV movie.
Oh yeah.
And like you know, the Doctor Strange fucking made for TV pilot, and there's like a bunch of these weird late 70s 80s like especially like Marvel movies that like are fucking terrible but are kind of fun because of just like the period they were made in, and they're just like really baffling decisions where like movie studios were like, well, we can't do what the comic books do because that's just dumb comic book nerd shit. And like nobody wants that in their movie, and I'm like, yeah, just wait like 20 years.
Imagine. I was gonna say that like because this came out in 1989, so like obviously like you were just saying there's other like superhero movies and stuff coming out, but I feel like for the most part it was just like cartoons, and so I feel like Punisher is like a really good character to try and like bring like make a movie about him to like bring it to more of the masses that like aren't people who are specifically like into superheroes or whatever. I feel like they could have still like treat because I think that my problem with this movie is that like the reason that I liked John Bernthal or whatever so much is like, yeah, we do spend a lot more time with him, but in my opinion, he has the most personality of any of the Punishers. Like, he's actually just a real dude. Like, obviously, he is dealing with like trauma and he's like going through stuff. But like a lot of times I feel like the Punisher is handled as this like soulless, emotionless kind of guy who like through his actions, you can tell that he like cares, you know, he saves like a whole bus full of like kids in this whatever. But for the most part, he just like is there like not, he has barely any lines in this movie. Like he doesn't talk a lot. He's just kind of more like a figure than he is like a real character, if that makes sense.
So my understanding is they do like not a lot of dialogue because Dolph Lundgren's accent.
The accent. Yeah, I mean, and that's fair.
I think it works for him, and especially like they're coming off like I think I could be wrong about this. I feel like I read that this was like pretty early into Dolph Lundgren's like acting career, where I feel like he had maybe just been coming off like whatever Rocky movie that he was Ivan Drago in.
Okay.
And, like, he just, like, all of his dialogue in that movie is very sparse and shit. Sure. And, like, I feel like that's just what they were doing with him. And, I don't know, apparently he, like, hates this movie.
Oh.
And, like, because I don't know, I think it's one of those things that, like, it just flopped so hard.
Yeah.
It had so many kind of, like, issues with its release and edits and all this shit that I think this is just one of those things that they just sort of, he was just like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about that. But like, I don't know, I think it's pretty good, especially for this time period when like I said, like the other shit that's coming out around this time period is like the fucking David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury like made for TV movie, which is fucking terrible. I also love it, but it's terrible.
Well,
but like I don't know. Like, I wish this one got more. Or I guess like maybe it was more. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's super available.
Yeah.
Like, because when I was like, oh, I'm gonna see if I could find like, because I knew they had released like the other versions on DVD at some point, but they're all like out of print, like European, like region DVDs and shit for going for like $300 or whatever, and I was like, fuck.
Wow. Going back to kind of like, I think I do very much understand cutting the dialogue, because he, even when he is like saying stuff, like he's like just pulling this voice that doesn't overall work for me. But that being said, his look is like, to me, very good. Like he looks extremely like what I would picture like a real life like 80s Frank Castle, where he's kind of like gruff and scary looking, but also kind of, it's so hard to articulate. He looks like he could be like a soft baby also, if that makes sense. Like his look is just like really good for this time, for this like era. And but I don't know, I just feel like they made some weird choices with the movie as far as like you know, we're focusing a lot on these like two outside cops who they introduce this like woman cop who pretty much is useless in the movie for the most part, and then like for a majority of the movie Frank Castle is just like riding his motorcycle in the sewer.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, I just kind of feel like that they could have gone with like a better storyline, because like he is not really
at the center of this movie, except for that some of the cops think that the crime stuff that's happening is like attributed to him, which makes no sense. But I mean, other than that, I think the movie's like totally fine. Like I said, I think it was, to me, even though it didn't do well, like a smart call to make this just like a straight up like crime thriller kind of movie. But there's a lot of explosions and shooting and stuff, so like you have to be into that for this.
I think like that's weird. They didn't even have like Punisher listed on like Wikipedia under like fucking movies made after about Marvel comic characters.
Yeah,
I don't really.
And you want us to pay money to use your site? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know why that's not on here unless they're like, oh, they have it listed as like a direct to video or television.
Oh, okay.
Even though it had like technically had a theatrical run. Like, yeah, like if you look at like the list of stuff that was coming out around the time, it's like Howard the Duck.
Mm-hmm.
They have, you know, the 70s Spider-Man. You have, no, not fuck Men in Black. Come on, you know, the Incredible Hulk TV show movies like came before this, like the shitty Doctor Strange pilot and the Captain America movies that are pretty bad. Like nothing good. Like especially at least Marvel wise, I can't remember if DC was really doing anything. I don't think DC did a whole lot between. Oh, they were probably doing the Superman movies at that point, or had done them at that point. Those are pretty popular, but like Marvel had like nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's interesting that like they went like with the Punisher of all characters, considering, like I said, like everything else. Well, I guess Doctor Strange is a pretty fucking weird, like especially at that time, fucking unknown character,
more obscure character. Yeah.
But like I don't know, they weren't like really like, it feels like Spider-Man was like their main focus up until the 80s, and then like the Hulk TV show. But like it's just like it was just like this time period where they just like didn't really know like what the fuck they were doing, and Marvel Comics was in the process of like possibly going bankrupt, and had sold the rights to like all of their characters to different studios, which is, you know, what has led to like recently like Disney and Marvel acquiring them all back, except for apparently Spider-Man.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, like, you know, they get to use it at least, but so like I don't know, there's like a weird history in like all of these older Marvel movies that I find really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And like led to what I think are like this, like pretty fun, interesting movies. Like I fucking back like Albert Pune's Captain America, despite it being Captain America being like a huge coward throughout the entire thing, and constantly like running away.
love a coward superhero.
Like there's periods where I'm just like, yeah, I want to watch like a comic book thing, but I really want to watch like stupid ones, and I will just dive into like this period of comic book movies instead of watching like the modern ones, because I don't know, I find them fun, and they always have like really, really weird, baffling choices to them. And like this, like I don't know why. It's so like, it shouldn't be, because I don't know if they've done this in the comics yet or not, but I know they did it sometime in the last little bit, where it was like Frank Castle versus like the Yakuza. And so I think it's a really interesting choice in like the 80s that it's like the Yakuza instead of like just a general like, you know, Manhattan Italian mob thing.
Yeah, because, well, what's interesting about it to me is, like I said, I think that there was like so much stuff of that period where it was just like the Japanese are the bad people, but also you have like just American crime family, and then it's like the Yakuza's here, but they're also like trying to dick over the mafia, and then he's just kind of like he and everybody else is just like caught in the middle of those two factions, which I think is more interesting than just like, I don't know, they're trying to take over New York or like whatever, which is like the typical sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I will say that like I was introduced to the Punisher originally through Spider-Man, like the Spider-Man team up comics or whatever. So I'm just wondering if maybe that's why they were like, oh, Spider-Man's so big, like maybe people will recognize this character also, even though he doesn't look anything like he does in the comics. But that's fine.
I would bet anything it's somebody was like, I bet Dolph Lundgren would be good as like this character and did that.
Let's just do that. Yeah. I mean, like I said,
I don't know. Apparently Christopher Lambert was the original fucking idea they wanted, and then apparently Steven Seagal wanted to play it, and they were like, no thank you.
No thanks. Thanks for asking, though.
That's the thing. It's like I feel like we've talked about it periodically on like some of the comic book episodes where we talk about like casting ideas, and it's just like I feel like the big problem with what was happening in like the 80s and a little bit of the early 90s, probably really up until you get to like Blade, is like they're constantly just like every person that they wanted to cast in either a villain role or like a hero role was like Arnold Schwarzenegger or like Stallone.
Yeah, like a big beefy
yeah, they're
guy.
just like, well, they have to be like a huge muscular dude, and it's just like, no, you don't.
They actually don't, but like, thank you.
It's really interesting that we've hit that point now where it's like, you know, like Robert Downey Jr., it's not like he's like not in shape, but like he's not fucking like, if they'd done like Iron Man in the 80s, it would have been some fucking jacked, ripped dude playing it or whatever.
Yeah,
and like you don't really need that for a lot of the characters that like Mr. Freeze should not be Arnold Schwarzenegger, because Mr. Freeze is like a small dude in like a suit, like a cryo suit or whatever.
I disagree. Yeah, totally. And I think like it kind of comes back around to like what we were talking about with some of like the newer choices of people they've picked for like the heroes. Like specifically recently we were talking about, I don't even know the guy's name who plays the new Superman, and how they have just finally started picking like a good, I would say this about me personally, I would say this about Robert Downey Jr., where he's just like a normal looking guy. He's just like a guy. I think people think that he's handsome, but I don't. I think he just looks like a normal guy, which I prefer to like, I don't know, a conventionally like a Chris Hemsworth or like whoever everyone's like super into. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the difference is now they're like, let's try to cast sort of comic book appropriate, so like they at least look like the character like, somewhat.
Yeah, or at like least Tom Holland to me is like a like, age appropriate looking like nerdy guy.
Even if like they're not like specifically doing, because you know I know like fucking dipshit comic book people online get all bent out of shape when they like cast like an Asian person in a role or whatever, and like they're like just it's obviously they don't pay attention to comics, because it's just like, oh well, you know, actually they're casting like this version they did in like the 2020s, and that's like the
right, yeah.
Like at this period they're just like, we got to get whoever the big fucking muscly star is all the time.
Yeah.
Like David Hasselhoff.
They'll sell the movie. Yeah. Well, whatever. I mean, I think, you know, aside from his voice acting in this, I think he looks the part. I think he's fine. But
yeah, I think just literally all they had to do was like dye his hair and give him like some fucking stubble.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad they at least did that though, because like sometimes it'll throw me off when like like for literally example, it's like the Punisher, and then this guy comes in and he's got like long blonde wavy hair, and I'm like, excuse me, like who are you?
I think the big problem is for me is like we've talked about it, I think, at some of the other episodes, but like I feel it's like the Punisher's hard to sustain without another character to like interact with a lot of the times, I think, in these. So like I think that's why he's like, that's why he works so well in like the Daredevil show, or like when he pops up with like Spider-Man and things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know. It's hard for them. I feel like it seems like to just figure out how to humanize a character's entire thing is just he kills people, whether they're like bad or not. But like, it's just, how do you do a 2-hour movie that's just a dude killing people without having to do all of this extra sort of like generic movie stuff to it?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think they handle it pretty well in this, and I think the Punisher TV show does really well is you get to like dive into his like psyche and sort of like trauma and shit a lot more, because you get more time to deal with it. Whereas these, it's always like, oh well, here's like 3-minute backstory. All right, now we're into like, his family was killed. All right, he's Punisher. Anyway, here you go.
Yeah, he just is going to pop up and kill somebody, and that's it. Yeah. Well, I have like 3 pages of notes because, like I said, this is a lot of explosions and gunshots and fighting and stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, like very much your movie. There's just not a lot to say about it. But I did find the opening to this to be very like James Bond-ish, but with like scary theatrical music instead of like Duran Duran, because it was like it did like an intro where it was like bullseyes, but they were like alternating different colors and like figures of men with like masks and knives showing up and stuff, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. So like immediately we're just kind of introduced to some of the like crime family. There's like this crime boss. Like ultimately the crime people in this do not matter. Like if we're talking about Daredevil, I feel just specifically for this movie, the crime families and whoever like don't really matter that much. But essentially there's like this crime boss who's being released from prison after serving 5 years for allegedly killing a cop who was named Frank Castle and his family. Oh my goodness. This is like a press release or whatever, and the guy's just like, he's like, hey, how do you feel to get out? Oh, I feel great, thank you. And I was like, wow, this is intense. They also mentioned that there is a mysterious vigilante going around called the Punisher, but the crime boss is not scared of him. So after all this like press, he goes home to his mansion where he's going to celebrate. But meanwhile, someone has snuck in wearing a lot of black leather. And he silently goes around in this guy's house beating up and killing his goons. Outside, the press is still out there being like, he's released from prison. Maybe he did it. I don't know. Crime family stuff. And they start hearing a bunch of gunshots. And then, of course, the house explodes. The crime boss comes to the fiery doorway and falls down dead with a knife in his back, and the knife has like a skull on it. And as we find out later, these like knives with skull tips on them is like the signature thing of the Punisher.
It's the closest you get to seeing the Punisher skull.
Yeah,
and like movie.
And like it's not even really that close to like a Punisher skull. It's just looks like a skull to me. But
yeah, it's like, I think the real main flaw of this movie is, even if it was like at the end you see like on the chest, and I think like everyone involved in making it was like, yeah, that was a bad decision. Like we should have just had him have the skull.
And like even the poster art, like not the movie poster art, but like what's behind it on IMDb, it's like him and then the Punisher skull on his jacket, but that could be like photoshopped or something.
Yeah, that's not on like the actual that's probably I think that one is from like, there is like a like deluxe Blu-ray release of this movie that has like all of the cuts, that I think that is what that is from. Because like the actual other movie posters, it's like MIA still.
I mean, even something as simple, it's like literally just kind of like on his like over his like
where like a breast pocket would be,
Yeah.
and it's just like the skull. That's simple. It doesn't need to be his whole chest. It doesn't need like, whatever. Okay, yeah. So he falls down dead. He's got the Punisher knife in his back, and then the house explodes again. This is when we see our flashback of Frank Castle's wife and his 2 kids dying in a car explosion. And so, he's obviously sad about that. He never stops talking about it. There's rumors about Frank Castle not being dead, but actually being the Punisher. And we meet, is it Perkowitz?
Is that what Lou Gossett Jr.'s character, like the cop that's following him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jake
Oh,
Berkowitz.
I'm sorry. It's Berkowitz with a B. I said P. Perkowitz. Berkowitz. We meet him. He's ahead of the task force. And like essentially we get a lot of back and forth of him trying to like find the Punisher and figure out what happened. And like the thing that we find out, because we meet Sam also, who's just like this detective who was like wanting to join the task force. And again, I feel like her role in this is like she doesn't really need to be in it, but she's like, I'm top of my class, I want to join the task force. And he's like, all right, come on. What does that say? Oh, Frank. Okay, I was confused because one of the crime brothers' names is Franco, and I was like, did I just not finish writing Frank Castle? But it's just like one of the crime brothers returns home, and it's basically like talking to like the other crime boss guys, saying that he doesn't want to have, because the crime boss, like the big head boss that we just met, is like dead, right? So all of the like underlings are basically like meeting to be like, what are we gonna do? And the one guy is like, listen, I don't want to have a war over the territories anymore. Like, I just want like everybody to share the territory and not have to like worry about this anymore. And the other guy's like, oh, how are you gonna do that? And he's like, we're just gonna bring in a bunch of drugs. No worries. That'll fix everything. This is where Punisher talks to his informant, who is a man named Shake, who's every time he says anything, it rhymes, which is extremely strange.
Who is his little sidekick character in the TV show? Do you remember?
I don't remember him having one.
Yeah, it's the guy that like does all the like computer work and shit for him. I can't remember his fucking name though.
Oh,
because he's like the guy that like works with him in the comics. And I think they did that shit. They're like, well, we can't do that character. That character's too goofy, and like did this weird shit instead.
David Lieberman, also known as Microchip or Micro. I don't remember him at all.
Yeah, he was there.
Not very memorable, I guess. I need to rewatch it because we'll talk about it later. But I watched I can't speak today, by the way. The Daredevil Born Again trailer, and when he popped up at the end, I was like, ah! Just like in Spider-Man when Daredevil showed up, and I also screamed in the theater, and I got kicked out. But you know how it is.
As you should.
Yeah. Well, anyways, his sidekick in this is just like a guy who rhymes. And also lives in the sewer, maybe.
Yeah, I was like, isn't he just like a homeless dude?
Yeah.
It's weird.
He is. Which, I feel like is smart because, like, largely, like, if you want somebody who seems like they're not, who's, like, largely unnoticed and, like, other people won't think twice about just, like, having a conversation in front of, like, some random guy, Like, it seems to work, but, like, the weird angle of them having him be, like, really into Shakespeare and rhyming every single thing that he says is just like was the weird thing to me. But anyways, he like talks to him about like what's going on, what's the haps, and then there's a scene at the docks, of course, because like you can't not have docks going on when there's like mafia stuff happening, and it's just basically like he shows up, but like the goons who are like a part of like the American mafia are getting like picked off one by one.
And I wrote knife shoes.
Oh yeah.
So, you know. And basically it's revealed to us that it is not the Punisher that's like killing these people. And he's basically like watching, and he's like, oh man, what's going on here? And then he starts like having to fight with whoever the assailants are, essentially. And he ends up getting like hurt and having to escape into the river/sewer, which, yikes.
Fine.
But okay, but think about like getting a open wound and then jumping into like the dock river water.
Yeah, it's fine.
So, well, it is fine because he swims back into the sewer because, as I said, he's just living in the sewers in this movie, and he basically like takes one of his knives and heats it up and then cauterizes his own wound with it.
Hell yeah.
He's real sweaty in this movie, by the way.
Oh
too.
Yeah,
real sweaty. And this is where we meet Lady Tanaka, who is the head of the Yakuza, as we said, and we also meet her quote-unquote mute American daughter. She's just called Tanaka's daughter, so you know. And so she's basically meeting with like the head of like the mafia people, and they're basically like doing a rundown on her, you know, that she's part of the Yakuza, and they're like, oh man, she's scary or whatever. She comes in and she's basically just like, you guys fucking suck. Basically what I'm gonna let you do is I'm gonna let us be partners, and like I'm gonna just like give you 25% of the share. I'm gonna take 70%, which I don't think that math works, but that's what I wrote. And they're basically like, I don't like that, but like the Yakuza is pretty scary, right? Meanwhile, Frank has like somehow tapped into this like boardroom, and he is like being sweaty and sort of dying in the sewer while listening to this conversation go on. This is where Sam, who is, like I said, the new like detective on the task force, does a bunch of computer stuff, and Berkowitz is kind of like sexist to her about it. And she's basically just like talking about how she's going to use the computer to figure out where Punisher is, because she is plotting all the points where he shows up and kills somebody. And Berkowitz is like, I've been doing this for 5 years. Here's my map. And he's got like a map with all these like fucking not clothespins. Pins, push pins.
They should have done is had like all of the push pins create the skull.
Yeah, actually. That would have been badass. Could you imagine all the planning? I'm only going to kill the person I need to kill if they show up at the bottom of this Punisher tooth to finish out my logo. And like, he's basically just like, you stupid woman in your computer. I've been doing this on my chalkboard for 5 years and I can't figure it out. So what makes you think you can? Because the only thing that I have to show for the Punisher being real is this dagger and this box of like empty gun shells. And I was like, okay. And she's just like, tee-hee, of course. So meanwhile, we see a bunch of rich kids get kidnapped, and what was his name? Shake?
Yeah.
Basically tells Punisher, like, so essentially what is happening is that, like, obviously Punisher, Frank Castle, is trying to like get revenge on the mafia for having killed his family. He kills the crime boss, but because that crime boss guy is gone, he like completely everything just like goes out of whack, because you have like these other crime people trying to like figure out how to continue to take over the city, but then the Yakuza comes in and it seizes this moment to be like, you know, whatever. So like he kind of created all of this turmoil by killing this crime boss guy, and now the Yakuza is just like doing a bunch of shit that is like getting everybody hurt because of that. And he kind of is like trying to be like, oh, I don't give a shit about these like well, I mean, like obviously he does, but he's like trying to act like he doesn't care. And the informant Shake is basically just like, I don't know, this is kind of your fault. Like the Yakuza kidnapped all of the rich kids of the crime bosses to as like ransom to make the mafia do what they want. And they're like, you have to pay us like all this money or we're going to kill all your kids or whatever. And the Punisher's just like, I don't care about the kids. And then Shake was like, I don't know, be a shame if they died, and kind of just like strolls off. And so of course he's going to go like save the kids, right? This is a scene where he's like riding his motorcycle through the sewer. And I was like, I mean, sewers are just way bigger than I ever thought they were, I guess.
It's so funny anytime. Like, I mean, technically, I think people would be surprised at how big actual sewers are.
Yeah.
But they're not like this.
Well, and I can't imagine that, like, the sewer system would actually... My question is, like, how is he getting the motorcycle out of the sewer? Also, motorcycles are pretty loud, and it's echoey down there, so, like, I think people would hear somebody riding a motorcycle in a sewer. But that's just me. I don't know.
Nah, you would think so.
Crime Guys. Who's Crime Guys?
It could be anybody. The government.
I think... Oh, I mean, actually, so true. I think it's like the mob boss, mafia people are definitely, at this point, think that the Punisher's dead after this dock fight that happened. And they're like, man, that really sucks because we think that, like, he was the only one that could have stopped Lady Tanaka. So I don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to pay the ransom to get our kids back. There's just, like, a scene with Lady Tanaka, like, talking to the kids for some reason. And the kids, like, get in a fight with them. And this guy, like, fucking flings one of the kids across the room into a radiator or whatever. And I was like, damn. So... Punisher, I guess, doesn't know where the kids are, and to send a message to Lady Tanaka and the Yakuza, he goes onto the roof of this club that I guess she owns, and there's, like, Randy Newman playing in the club for some reason, but there's, like, strippers also, so I was like, this is a weird vibe.
Well, it seems pretty fun to me.
He, of course, like, does his thing. He comes through the ceiling. He's, like, shooting and fighting and scaring people all out of the fucking club. He gets, like, one of the Yakuza goons and is basically just like, you need to release the kids. I'm gonna keep wrecking. He just, like, wrecks the club for a while. The cops finally come, and Berkowitz is basically just like, oh my god, Yakuza's here. And they also find out about the kids who have been kidnapped. And, like, this is the confusing part to me because she's like, oh, everybody, there's a rumor saying that the Punisher is the lead suspect in the kidnapping of the kids. And it makes sense. And I was like, how? He has been very obviously, pointedly going around and killing, like, criminals. How would it make sense that he would steal a bunch of kids? Anyways, Bergowitz is just like, I don't think so. He wouldn't do that because of this. And, like, shows Sam a picture of Frank's kids. And I was like, I mean, also fair, but, like, you're stupid. Anyways, Frank rides his motorcycle around again. And he rides it into a fun house. And there's more fighting in a fun house, which, like, is great because there's people, like, sliding down crazy slides and, like, shooting guns and stuff, so that's always fun.
Hell yeah. This scene rocks.
The choreography and, like, the fight scenes, even though they, like, kind of go on for a while, are very fun. Like I said, that one at the dock where the people literally have, like, knife shoes and they're, like, high kicking people's throats off and stuff, it's, like, very fun. It's not like, I don't know, sometimes I watch crime stuff or, like, stuff with lots of fighting and I'm like, wow, this is so boring. But I think the fight scenes in this are pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, I think they do the, like, 80s action stuff pretty well, I think, in this.
The music is, like, very theatrical also. Like, it was almost kind of, like, Star Wars-y at some points for me. Yeah, so they're fighting, shooting, what have you. Essentially what ends up happening is that Tanaka's daughter comes and, like, beats Frank up, so they kidnap him. Lady Tanaka, so Frank, he kind of gets, like, they chloroformed him or something, I don't remember, but he wakes up and he's in a ye old stretching device where he's, like, you know, got his arms and his legs, like, tied into, like, a stretching device, and Lady Tanaka comes in and basically is like,
trying to be like, who sent you? All of this stuff, and he like doesn't care at all. They're like stretching him on the device, but he doesn't have a shirt on, so he's like very sweaty, and it's very obvious that they're like that Lady Tanaka's like, what a specimen. But yeah, they essentially like don't like, she's basically just like who sent you, what's going on, like you wrecked my club and like that wasn't cool, and he basically doesn't say anything. Then she reveals that they've also trapped Shake, and he is also tied up to Ye Olde stretching device, but Frank just kind of like acts like he doesn't really care. And Tanaka's like, fine, like...
I love that there's like, he fucking name drops Batman in this scene, which I guess was like improvised. Just for like, yeah, I guess this is fine.
Why not? Who cares? And so she's like, okay, well, I have other matters to attend to. See you later. And then Frank's like, hey, have a nice day. And the way he says it is like so funny. His voice is like kind of like a Batman voice, to be honest, because he's kind of like, have a nice day. He's like very gruff and like, I guess trying to enunciate like as best as he can, but it just comes off like kind of strange.
Yeah.
But like, there's these other two doctors in the room that I guess are gonna start like torturing them or whatever. And Frank is just kind of like, oh, like as he's like talking to them, he is able to like unscrew the handcuffs that are holding him to the torture device, which seems like really bad design on their part.
Seems like it would just like rip a bunch of skin off your hands and wrists.
Yeah,
or whatever.
But no, he just like very easily like unscrews them. It's just like, hey, come over here. Actually, I do have something to say to you. And the guy comes over and he just like steals his gun and like shoots the doctors and stuff. And I was like, easy peasy. He is able to get the location of the kids from the doctor. So as all of this stuff has been happening, Sam has done her computering and figured out that Punisher has been using the sewers to get around. This kind of like literally actually goes nowhere because there's like a scene of like her and Berkowitz like walking around checking the sewers and just like talking. And like the only thing that you really find out that's revealing at all is that like Berkowitz and Frank were like partners and they were like besties or whatever. And so it's like been hard on him because he like doesn't want to let him down by like not figuring out if he's alive or not or whatever. And like I forgot to say earlier that the thing that made Berkowitz actually let Sam join is that she's like, I don't think Frank Castle's dead. And then Berkowitz was like, okay, you can be on my team or whatever, but like I don't know, it's whatever.
Right.
Then so they're just like walking around the sewer and she's like, what made you finally like want to listen to me? And he's just like, oh, well, like I just said, Frank and I are besties. I'm not going to let him down or whatever. But they don't ever find any evidence in the sewers that Frank is actually down there or using it. So again, I guess it's just kind of like a way to reveal to us that like Berkowitz and Frank were friends in his past life or whatever. But I don't know. There's this like whole scene of Lady Tanaka coming into like the mafia guys' restaurant and like poisoning them all and killing them, which like I'm totally not really sure what her motives are, because she was like, okay, we're gonna do this partnership where I'm gonna get the majority of the profits, and they were kind of just like, I don't know, let's think about it. And then she's like, oh, you want to think about it? Okay, well then she kidnaps their kids and asks for a ransom, which they do pay. She doesn't give the kids back, but then she goes in and kills all of them. I
can't believe a bad guy would like not hold up their end of the deal.
I know. I'm just like kind of confused about. I guess she's just doing whatever she wants. But you know what? Good for her. I support women's wrongs, so to speak. So let's see. While this is all happening, Frank steals a city bus that he uses to rescue the kids. As he's like stuck into this building, he's rescued most of the kids, but he has to go back because two of the kids were separated. From that time when they were like fighting with the guards or whatever. And so he goes back in there and gets the kids, but like while that's happening, he gets like jumped by like the henchmen, and
all of that stuff. And then one of the kids, whose name probably was Tommy, gets kidnapped again. So he's able to free all of the kids except for one specific kid. He drives the city bus away from like where the Yakuza is and everything. And he's like being chased by the Yakuza as that's happening. And I thought that this scene was so funny because he is like ramming into cars and shit. He does not care. He like, and there's like kids in the car in like the bus with him, and he's just like ramming shit, and like it was very funny. But eventually he gets to a police barricade where he stops the bus and lets the kids all off to safety or whatever, and then he gets arrested. Berkowitz comes to talk to him and is just like, oh man, I can't believe you're alive. Like, I've been looking for you. I can't believe what happened. Like, what's going on? Like, why are you killing all of these people? And then Frank is just like, if you're guilty, you're dead. Berkowitz is pissed off about that and like slaps him around and shit. And he's like, you're sick. I don't even know who you are anymore. And then he's just like, fuck you. Like, essentially.
As the Punisher would.
Yes. Frank also has a nightmare. It's probably about his family, I would assume, because that's like pretty much all he's got going on. There is a news report on TV about Frank being arrested as the Punisher. And Sam goes to talk to Frank and is just basically like, I don't know what's wrong with you. Berkowitz retired after he caught you because of what you've been doing. You guys were best friends. You need to do right by him, this, that, and the other. And I was like, you've known him for like a day of police work, but go off. But during the prison transport of like taking Frank to prison, I guess, the transport is destroyed and Frank is kidnapped again. This time he is kidnapped by a mafia guy who is basically just like, hey, listen, I actually was the one that killed your family, but it was totally an accident, and I'm sorry. And Frank's like,
I'll forgive him. Time to hang up the boots.
Oh, my bad. As I said in the very beginning of this movie, he killed the guy that he thought was responsible for the deaths. And this dude is just like, by the way, whoops, it was literally the wrong car. It's so funny how cars all look the same. My bad. And Frank is just like, okay, what? And basically, like, the one kid that Frank wasn't able to save ends up being this guy's son. And he's like, listen, I kidnapped you because I need you to break into like the Yakuza headquarters and save my son. And if you don't do it, I have kidnapped Berkowitz and I'm going to kill him. Great. So Frank is like, all right, fine. But like, I probably am going to kill you later still because you killed my family. And the guy's like, that's fine. Let's just cooperate here. And Frank, again, also like, I guess wants to not let Berkowitz down. Like, he doesn't want him to get killed, right? And also, I guess he wants to stop the Yakuza. He seems like whatever. So they leave, and they're doing this whole thing to, like, break into the Yakuza building. Meanwhile, Berkowitz escapes mafia custody by saying he has to pee, and then ruins their pizza that got delivered, which honestly is egregious. Yeah. Yeah, so, like, they're breaking into the building or whatever. Frank and the crime guy are just, like, talking, and he's like, oh, do you think that you're gonna, like, kill me afterwards or whatever? And he's like, yeah, totally. And the guy was like...
Oh, fair enough.
The guy says, there's a limit to revenge, and Frank says, I guess I haven't reached it yet. So hard.
So fucking emo.
Maybe that's why I like him so much.
Probably.
Give me a brooding emo. He's got the black hair. He just needs some piercings, if you ask me.
Yeah, just swoopy haircut and piercings.
Please. Eyeliner, let's go. Skinny jeans, fishnets, let's do it. Give him some Converse. There we go. So, there's basically just, like, going through... I did also think that, this scene... So they break into the Yakuza building. They're basically just, like, fighting a bunch of guys in, like, the very beginning of it. And meanwhile, Shake is there, and he's, like, he's like setting these explosions, okay? Then there's like this whole scene that I thought was really cool where they enter this room that is essentially like they're called shoji screens, which is just like, you know, like the paper screens that you would see in like Japanese architecture. But they've lit the whole thing in red, and it just looks so cool.
Yeah, this entire like ending battle or whatever rocks.
It's very cool. People are popping out left and right. The crime guy and Frank are just like fucking taking people out and fighting and stuff. Eventually, so they're like fighting their way through this entire building of like trained Yakuza fighters, right? Eventually, the crime guy ends up finding Lady Tanaka with his son, and she is basically just like, I'm gonna like probably kill your kid, and he's like, no, don't. And so, like, there's, like, this whole face-off where, like, Lady Tanaka is like, listen, I will let your son go if you shoot yourself in the head right now. And the guy's like, I don't know about that. And she's like, well, isn't it better to think that there's a chance that I'm going to, like, hold up my end of the bargain and just do it rather than, like, watch your son die in front of you? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. Like, while this is happening, Frank has been fighting Tanaka's daughter. And as you'll remember earlier, she like kicked his ass. But this time, I think he has realized that she is like just like, I think one of the things they kind of like hint at, but like I don't think is explored a lot is that, you know, she is like an adopted, quote unquote, adopted like American daughter who has been, I think that Frank thinks that she is like more innocent. Because like, obviously, the whole thing with the Punisher is, like, the guilty and the innocent. And I think that he thought that she was, like, more innocent. Like, oh, she's just being, like, brainwashed into being, like, a part of this organization. And then he finally realizes that, no, she's just, like, a part of it. And so this time he's, like, doesn't hold back. And he just, like, snaps her fucking neck, which I was not expecting at all. I was like, ah! Very interesting.
It rocks.
Yeah. She's fucking dead. So yeah, Lady Tanaka is like, just kill yourself, I'll let your son go. And then right before he like puts the gun in his mouth and like right before he's about to pull the trigger, Frank just like busts in and throws a knife directly into Lady Tanaka's forehead and she dies. I was like, shit. And like, I will say too, they do show like people get shot dead in the head a lot and like we see it.
Yeah, that's
full
what
on.
Made me interested to try to watch one of the other cuts because I know it's supposed to have like more violence in it. I was like, I don't know, this one's like for what it is, pretty violent.
It is, and like again, like we sort of talk about this a lot when we talk about like superheroes, where there's like a really fine line between like most of them don't actually kill, or the violence is literally just like throwing a henchman and the guy stays down or whatever. So to see, you know, a character who actually, and then like a lot of times when it is a character who kills like Arrow in the very beginning, or, you know, Punisher, or even fucking Deadpool or like whatever, it's normally not, well, Deadpool a little bit more so now, but it's normally not super graphic violence. And this is like I said, with the people getting their knife shoe kicked open, like we see that. And so I think like that's part of what makes this movie like really unique to me, is that like not only is it violent, but it's not cutaway violence. Like they're putting in the effects to like show what's happening, which I just like don't think is very common, even in just like regular crime stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, Lady Tanaka's dead.
And then you basically get fucking him versus that dude in front of his kid.
Yeah.
Which I could do without, but
yeah, I don't like. Essentially,
like there's an entire scene where it's like the kid, like Frank Castle's like begging this kid to kill him, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need this.
Yeah, so like essentially like he saves them, and then the crime boss is like, hey, thanks for saving my son. However, I know that you're going to keep going after me, and eventually you'll probably kill my son. because my son is going to like take over my business one day. So I don't want to risk it. I'm just going to kill you now. If Frank is like obviously been through hell, so he's like hurt and he's just like laying there and he's like, no, I don't think so. He ends up like killing the crime boss guy in front of the son. The son gets the gun and is just like, hey, I'm going to kill you. And Frank's like, I wish you would. He's like, go ahead. Just like, go ahead and do it. He just like stands there and like, of course the kid like doesn't or whatever. And Frank is like, okay, that was just a test. You better be good. You better be a good person or I'll kill you. And the kid's just like, and I think that like, this might have been the kid earlier. There was like, they were showing scenes of like the kids who were kidnapped all together being like, what's going on? Cause like them being kidnapped was pretty graphic too. Like there's one scene where this, like the nanny is like talking, like telling a story to the kids with like a teddy bear or whatever. And she gets shot in the head, like right in front of them and like falls out a window or something. And I was like, Jesus. So the kids are trying to like figure out what's going on. And they're like, oh, well, we all got kidnapped because our dads are crime in the mafia. And the one kid is just like, I don't know what you're talking about. My dad's not in the mafia. And the other kid was like, yeah, he is. And my dad says that he's a coward. And it ends up being like this guy and the kid or whatever. So like this fucking kid is so dumb. He didn't even know his dad was like a crime boss or whatever. Anyways,
idiot.
Yeah, so Frank is like, you're a fucking idiot, and unless you end up being a good person, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And the kid's just like, oh, I peed my pants. So Frank is able to like stumble out of the building and escape. Oh yeah, I remember I said that there was like Shake was like putting explosions around the building or whatever. The entire time the cops are trying to figure out like how to get up into the Yakuza building, and eventually they do. And Berkowitz gets to the top and realizes that Frank's not there, and he just like stands on the top of the roof and is like, Frank. I was like, all right.
Gotta have that in every like 80s and 90s action movie.
And then it just like zooms out, and it's just like him standing on top of the roof with like his jacket billowing around him. Like he's Usher or something. And then we see Frank back in the sewer, and he is crouched naked before a fire. And if I said he was sweaty before, you better believe he is sweaty as hell now. But he's just like being there naked. And I was like, what is going on here? And he says, I still talk to God sometimes. I ask him if what I'm doing is right or wrong. I'm still waiting for an answer. And until I get one, I'll be out here waiting, watching. The guilty will be punished.
Boo.
And then it goes, the Punisher! And that's the end.
Yeah, somebody just jumps on screen and yells, the Punisher.
Yep. Berkowitz goes, the Punisher! Frank!
I'm shocked that, like, they didn't end it with him being like, well, my job here is done. Time to stop being the Punisher.
Right, because, well, yeah, I mean, I guess, like they do make it seem like his sole driving force in his actions is that he's just, like, trying to get revenge for his family being murdered, and, like, he does. So you'd think he'd be like, all right, fine, but now I guess he's like, well, what else am I gonna do? I guess I'll just keep fighting crime.
Yeah, I mean, hasn't met Spider-Man yet, so he's got to keep going until that happens.
He hasn't met his life partner, soulmate Spider-Man.
It would have been so funny if the end of this movie was just like Spider-Man swings in. It was just like, hey, Frank.
What's up, dude? I would have loved that. I would have peed my pants.
This movie rocks. You can watch it for free on like YouTube and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, obviously, like we were talking about, it's not like a flashy like superhero movie, but it is very much like a action-packed, like like a crime action movie. So like if that's your thing, it's like totally worth watching.
Yeah, like if you are into 80s and 90s action movies, like
this is it. Yeah.
I didn't look at any news.
And if you're into Dolph Lundgren naked, then this is the movie for you.
Who isn't?
You just have to wait till the very end, but the payoff is pretty good.
Um, yeah, I didn't look up any news. I'm assuming nothing worth talking about because there never is.
No, I mean, I figured we would just like talk about some of the trailers as news.
Oh yeah. I don't see. I watched Daredevil, but that was a while ago, so I don't really remember.
So the Daredevil one was interesting to me because this was like forever ago at this point, but I remember when we had watched Echo, we were talking about how like I guess spoilers for some Disney Marvel stuff if like Disney Marvel, specifically like the Disney TV shows, if you're not caught up on those starting now. At the end of Echo, there was that like scene where she kind of like faces off with Fisk, and we were kind of like, oh, well, what happened there? Like, does she kill him? Because like it's left very open-ended, right? So I was like a little surprised to see that in the Daredevil Born Again trailer, it is like Fisk is just back, and he's like, hey, I'm good now. I'm the mayor. And Daredevil's like, okay, cool. So like obviously I don't know when any of this stuff takes place in relationship to each other.
I saw something that said basically like the Daredevil stuff, like him being in She-Hulk or whatever, mm-hmm. is all essentially just like little mini adventures that like won't really like none of that's gonna tie into like the new TV show like at all.
Yeah. I just like I'm curious. I don't even know actually if they're continuing Echo. So like maybe that won't even ever pan out to be anything. But yeah, so essentially it's the trailer for Born Again is just like Matt and Fisk talking at a diner and basically just being like, so man, what have you been up to since
remember what happened when the show got canceled?
Since we got canceled 5 years ago or whenever that was. And Fisk is just like, listen, I am the mayor, or whatever the fuck, somebody always has to be the mayor here. He's like, I'm a good guy now. I am not into crime, so don't even worry about me. And Matt's just like, okay, cool. And he's like, so how come you're not Daredevil anymore? And he's just like, I don't know, bad shit happened, and I just like don't want to do it anymore. And we do get glimpses of Karen and Foggy. And, they do that thing at the end of the trailer where there's like just a bunch of fast paced like fighting or whatever. We see previous suits of his and whatever. And then Punisher pops up. And I was like, ah! So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
They had like announced pretty early that he was going to be in it.
Yeah.
I think for a while, like they were saying that like Foggy and Karen weren't going to be in it, and I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's what I had heard too, which like didn't really make a lot of sense to me, but it is what it is. I need to rewatch that, and I actually cannot remember if I finished season 2 of Punisher. That first season to me is like one of my favorite. Like I thought it was so good, but I do think when they introduced Punisher in the actual Daredevil series, like that material was so good that like I'm glad maybe they're just going to be integrated. I don't know if they're continuing or redoing Punisher himself or not, but
I think it's ideally I think it's supposed to be that like all of the TV show stuff and the Netflix stuff like did happen, but I don't know how much they're going to reference or rely on it.
Yeah.
Like I think they're going to like I don't think they're like rebooting the whole thing, but I don't think it's going to be as like heavily tied into like The Hand and fucking all that stuff. I think it's going to be like, hey, all that shit happened, but now there's like this new
we're just like moving on and we're not like negating it or whatever, but we're also not like continuing whatever. Yeah. That's fine. I just want like I don't know. I was gonna say as long as it's as good as the original stuff was, I'm happy, but we'll see.
Yeah, there was like a bunch of updates coming from like people that worked on it that were like, oh man, it's terrible. And then like other people being like, it rocks. So I don't know. Like I remember like some unnamed source was saying like all of the stunts in it were like bad and they fucked up all the fight scenes, but then like other people being like, actually they're pretty much on par with the Netflix ones, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm in either way.
Yeah, 100%. So there's that. Also, obviously the Superman trailer, which was also kind of a little bit ago, but
so good.
I think it looks amazing. I'm stoked.
I'm hesitant because DC, all of like the Zack Snyder stuff, I would watch the trailers and be like, this looks fucking rad, and then go see the movie and be like, oh, this is trash. Like I was so amped for Batman v Superman, and then went to see the theater and I was like, what the fuck is happening?
I think see, I didn't have that reaction. Like the trailers to like the original or like the early DC stuff, I did not think looked like something I would be into, and I like wasn't really interested. That the vibe just like wasn't there for me, and I feel differently about this. And like we've talked about before, like I am not a very big Superman fan. Like if he's in stuff, I'm like fine. I really liked those animated movies they did that were like Death of Superman, Rebirth, whatever. I liked those a lot. That's probably some of my favorite like Superman stuff, but like in general, he's just like not my favorite. I don't care. Something about this movie feels different to me, and I don't know what it is, but like I was saying earlier, like I really like the vibes we're getting from like the new cast. Obviously, my boy Nicholas is in it. I think he's going to be great as Lex. I don't know. I'm
intrigued. Lex Luthor's like a hard character to pull off that like I don't think they've done a great job with in live action yet. So I'm interested to see what he does with it.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like my problem is that like I guess like technically I don't really know how old Lex Luthor is supposed to be, but in general I feel like they usually cast like younger nerdy dudes than how old I think you should be.
Well, they do that now because like Gene Hackman was fucking Lex Luthor in like the Christopher Reeve ones.
Yeah.
And he refused to shave his head. So he just like has hair.
Weird. I did mean like the newer movies,
yeah, like
obviously, but
like,
I liked
ideally...
John Cryer in the Supergirl series. Like I thought he looked and played the part like really, really well. Like I understand we can't just like use him again, but
ideally, like Lex Luthor should be like late 30s, early 40s, I think, because like in the comics, at some point, I think he becomes president. And so, like, he should be roughly in that age area. Like, and, you know, I think Superman is supposed to be, like, I think they've said that, like, unless, like, explicitly stated, like, Superman and, like, Batman or whoever are all supposed to be, like mid-30s.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm here for a, hopefully, joyful Superman movie. Like obviously there's gonna be like bleak shit in it because you can't just make a fucking movie like this and have it just be like happy all the time, but like man, those fucking Zack Snyder Superman movies are fucking brutal.
Yeah,
like, Man of Steel sucks. It's so fucking depressing all the time, and then like everything else they do with him outside of like I like that Snyder Cut Justice League movie, but everything else in that fucking series of movies is so fucking depressing all the time.
I don't even know if I've watched the Superman movie. The
Man of Steel is so fucking relentlessly like dour. It's insane. I don't know why anyone thought like, oh, let's just like have fucking Superman just be fucking emo all the time and just it sucks. It's so bad.
Who do they think he is? Batman?
Yeah, that was everyone's complaint. They were like, why is Superman like just being fucking like Batman all the time. It's weird. Like, I liked Henry Cavill as Superman. I thought he was like pretty decent cast, and like he looked like the part, but man, the way Zack Snyder made those movies is fucking insane.
Yeah, I mean, we did kind of like, I think specifically, we might have actually talked about this trailer before because maybe I don't remember what actually we were talking about, but we were talking more about like cast people who fit the part rather than like look the part, but like personality doesn't fit it or acting doesn't fit it or whatever. So we'll see. And I think like the thing that I'm excited about with this movie too is that it's like not just like, okay, we're doing a Superman movie. They've got like so many other characters. Hawkgirl, who is one of my favorites, has like a small cameo. And then obviously we talked about Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, fucking what's his name is
Laurent from Twilight.
No, I was gonna say Nathan Fillion is Guy Gardner.
Oh yeah,
where everyone was like, "Who's this fucking nerd? You guys are saying this is gonna be better than the Zack Snyder movies," and everyone was like, "Just tell me you don't read comics without."
Yeah. I mean, I could see how his appearance would be a little off-putting at first, but I don't know. I have unfortunately high hopes with just like the cast and like the different directions.
I need to sit down and watch that like Creature Commandos cartoon to get like a feel of like what James Gunn is gonna be doing with it. But like, I don't know, James Gunn has not really let me down in a movie yet, so I'm hesitantly excited for it. That fucking shot of Crypto sold me alone. Like having Crypto in it, I was like, I'm in. Let's go.
And you know how I feel about CG, but like I didn't really mind because I was like so pleasantly surprised.
I actually just had a conversation with John and my little like mini side thing I'm working on about CG, and I was just like, it's just one of those things where it's just like, if it's done well, like I'm in. Like Jurassic Park, like it's fucking perfect. It does not bother me whatsoever. It's just when it's like used fucking badly. Like we actually the thing we talked about in reference to it was the Flash movie, where I was like, because he was like, I never saw that, and I just remember seeing like the trailer. I was like, dude, you have no idea how fucking shitty that movie is.
Oh my god!
I was like, anything you saw in those trailers, the CG is like 100 times worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Did you? I'm assuming because I was texting you, you were like watching the Super Bowl with your family. Did you see the Thunderbolts trailer? Because I did not.
Yeah. I need to watch it again because I kind of was like watching it from another room and I saw it, but it looks like it could be interesting too.
That's the one out of like the newer releases coming up that I'm the most intrigued in, because I haven't seen anything about like what it's about, and like I'm very interested to see, because like I like the idea behind that movie, and like I like that cast. So like I'm very intrigued to see what that's gonna be, and I think it's the one we're gonna finally get like Julia Louis-Dreyfus as like a big main bad guy, like, you know, a main villain kind of moving forward, because I think she's gonna be the one that's like putting them together. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe fucking Harrison Ford. I'm not sure. I like, we've talked about it like off mic, but like I'm so far behind on the Marvel stuff at the moment because like I just don't have Disney Plus. So like I have no idea what's currently going on, because like I haven't seen the Marvels, I haven't seen the new Deadpool movie, and I haven't seen What If season 2. I haven't seen Agatha, so I'm not even like sure what's currently even going on. But it seems like maybe the new Captain America is what's going to be like really kind of kickstarting stuff going forward.
Yeah, so the Captain America trailer was the one that I watched and was like, oh, I don't know about this. That's kind of like the only one that I've seen recently that I didn't really feel like I was interested in. Thunderbolt seems interesting to me because of like the group that it is.
And I feel like the trailer positioned it as like almost like gave people like the impression of like a Suicide Squad type situation.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Thunderbolts are to an extent, where it's just like a fucking bad guy super group or whatever.
Yeah, I was like trying to explain it to my brother-in-law because he asked like, "Is this just the version of that?" And I was like, like kind of, but like in my opinion, not really, just because of like Ghost is there, and I wouldn't call her. They're kind of like Suicide Squad are like straight up like villains, and I feel like a lot of these characters are more like a morally gray were villain. Maybe they aren't anymore. Maybe like kind of thing.
I think the difference is Suicide Squad is like they're forced into like doing this stuff, and I think the Thunderbolts in the comics like willingly or like
yeah,
because if I remember correctly, I think Zemo, at least in any of the Thunderbolt stuff I've read, is like their leader, and I don't know because like that's the thing is I feel like they were like it seems like they were leading it to be that like Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character is the one that's putting them together, but I think in the comic books it's literally Thunderbolt Ross, which is why they're the Thunderbolts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that's what's going to be happening in this, because I can't imagine they got Harrison Ford to do another movie. He seems like somebody was like, yeah, I'll do this Hulk movie because it's going to be all CGI and I'm not going to have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I don't know. I'm interested because I like a lot of the like the main group of people and
yeah, I'm here for
their characters.
Zemo and then Black Widow's sister, Florence Pugh's character.
Yelena.
Yeah, I like both of them a lot. And then like David Harbour is like her stepdad or whatever. I can't remember what his character's name is, but like yeah, that
Guardian or something.
Oh yeah, Red Guardian maybe.
Maybe I don't know. There's a lot of combos of names like that.
Very interested in that. I actually kind of jumping to the Captain America one. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'd watched a trailer for it until one of them played while we were watching something on like Peacock or something. I think they played like a trailer. And I'm glad they're finally fucking referencing that fucking giant Eternal thing that's just like coming out of the ground that has like not been referenced at all. But they mentioned that like the big thing in it is that they're getting adamantium from it, which means Wolverine's coming. It means we have to be getting like a whatever this MCU X-Men's gonna be soon.
Yeah, maybe maybe I just need to wait for like a more extended trailer. And I'm
not gonna go see it in a theater. I think it's on like the fucking Palestinian boycott list because of like a character that's in it that's like a
you said that
Israeli like Mossad character or whatever from the comics. So whenever it's free, I will watch it. I'll probably get caught up sometime around the time that hits like Disney Plus or whatever, I guess. But like it's one that like I like Anthony Mackie. I like him as Captain America. I'm like interested, but it's not one even like outside of it being on like that boycott list. I don't think I would have gone to a theater to see it. It's like nothing in that trailer has like struck me that like I'm like I have to go see this, but I'll clearly watch it at some point.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're like continuing with him as Captain America because I feel like it would have been really easy for them to end with being like, oh yeah, he's Captain America, okay, bye, moving on, and like not actually featured him or whatever.
I don't know if we've talked about it yet, but did you see that Chris Evans has officially announced that he is also coming back in whatever the fucking Avengers movies coming up with Robert Downey Jr. as Doom?
I did not.
I mean, he's clearly going to be alternate universe, probably working with, Doom. But like, if those two have been announced that they're coming back, I'm very interested to see like who is unannounced coming back. And yeah. I believe they've stated at that.
This is Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah, it's Avengers Doomsday and Avengers like something else. There's Secret Wars.
Secret Wars. Yeah. Okay. I haven't seen anything about this really, honestly.
Believe they've already stated that like it's like, you know, a one-time only thing for like those movies. Like it's not like, hey, they're back for good. Because I think everyone was like, oh man, they're gonna be back for good. But like, I'd be fucking shocked if we don't get like a scene of like Iron Man again or some shit, you know?
Yeah, I am looking at the cast list for that movie now, and I am actually kind of hyped now.
Kevin Feige has said his goal for Secret Wars. Well, this was originally, I don't know if that's changed after like all of the Jonathan Majors shit happened and kind of they had to like recalibrate, but like that his idea was that he wanted anyone who has played a Marvel character to be in that movie that is like still alive.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
would mean
it looks like
possibly fucking Dolph Lundgren Punisher. Like Nick Cage Ghost Rider it might show up. Like
that would be insane.
Because the idea of Secret Wars is at least like the comic run. Because I think they've done Secret Wars again recently in like the last decade. But like the original one was like somebody making these characters fight each other to the death to create one main universe.
Right.
And so you would have like, I think ideally their plan would have been like, oh, we could have like the new Blade fight fucking Wesley Snipes' Blade. Yeah. And shit like, you know, it's just stuff like that. But like, I have no idea how any of that's changed. And I know like some of those, like Chris Evans is in Daredevil and Wolverine as like Fantastic Four, his Human Torch one. So like, I can't imagine that's also going to be happening in Secret Wars now.
Yeah.
So I think things have changed since the last time I like really paid attention to some of the news for that. But I would like to see Chris Evans come back in whatever role. I mean, he's obviously going to be playing just alternate universe Steve Rogers, but
right. Looks like maybe Moon Knight might be in it.
I mean, hopefully they have done fucking. That's the thing is like. I'm still. We've talked about it almost everything in this this last phase where I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck any of this ties into like anything.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping it seems like things are somewhat
shaken back together.
Like even like I feel like the last thing we talked about, it seemed like they were like slowly starting like. Maybe it was when we were talking about like Loki season 2 and stuff.
Yeah,
like it just seems like they're kind of like course correcting a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. That one last phase was like I was like I don't know what the fuck's going on in any of this.
Yeah, I feel like they are starting to like maybe give like little breadcrumbs of being able to piece it together.
Well, but I also like I am absolutely fine like with the way like DC has talked about like moving forward of like I don't need this all to be like tied together. Like I can absolutely just watch, you know, a Moon Knight season where it's just like a series that just takes place in that universe. You can like how like the Netflix shows would like mention the attack on New York City or whatever, but never fucking like have Iron Man show up or whatever. Like do that. I'm fine with that. Like I don't need everything to be, you know, I don't need fucking the Hulk to pop in on fucking Moon Knight for a team up and shit. Like it could just be in the universe.
Right. Yeah.
What did you think of the Fantastic Four trailer? Because I could not care less about Fantastic Four for the most part, but I am fucking stoked for that movie now.
Literally the exact same response. I don't care about Fantastic Four. I never have. I've never cared about the characters individually. I think it looks great. I was also skeptical when I saw what's that guy's name who's playing the Torch?
Joseph Quinn or something?
Yeah. I was like, I don't really know about him. I don't really care enough actually to really have an opinion. The way that they made it like extremely like retro futuristic and like the outfits and like whatever the tint is that they're using on it like really worked for me. I was like, okay, this looks like it's going to actually be so cool.
If fucking that movie is what brings Galactus as like a big a big threat like leading up to like Doctor Doom or whatever, I am so fucking in. I want Galactus so bad. And like hopefully that means Silver Surfer is going to be showing up. Like it makes me think that like what's going to happen is like, cuz that movie takes place in the 60s, clearly like in an alternate universe. Mm-hmm. And like I saw people point out that like the chalkboard that like Pedro Pascal is like writing on has like multiverse shit on it. And so I'm really wondering if like what is going to happen is like Galactus shows up and they don't know how to stop him, and they have to like, they just end up hopping to like whatever universe the MCU is in.
Right.
And I love it. Like they're going to be like, they're start warning about like Galactus coming or like whatever, I don't know, but like seeing the back of Galactus, I was so fucking hyped. The way the Thing looks is perfect. I saw a bunch of people bitching. They're like, this doesn't look like the Thing. And then they were posting like pictures of like Michael Chiklis from the fucking... And I'm like, God, man, just fucking shut the fuck up. If you don't read the comics, just stop fucking complaining about the way these characters look. Because like, you're always wrong.
Yeah.
He looks so good.
He looks pretty good, and like the dude that plays him, I wasn't skeptical, but you know, he's in The Bear, which has been like the bigger thing recently that people are like all about, and he plays just this like cousin guy who just is always fucking yelling, and I was just like, I don't know about that, but he seems to have like a pretty good range, so I think his voice fits perfectly with like his Thing persona or whatever. I don't know. I think it like visually looks very cool. So we'll see. There's like so many like question marks because like remember at the end of No Way Home when the spell Doctor Strange's spell is like going all crazy, and then you could see those like celestial people in the sky like coming through from other dimensions or whatever.
You see like Rhino and fucking whatever in the...
Yeah, and like I don't know, like it does, well, I don't know. Anyways, where I was going with that, just like Galactus being with them and them coming to like forward to like another universe would be really cool. But I don't know. I think that one of the things that I'm liking that I'm seeing a lot with these like newer phase things is actually exactly what I was saying I liked about the Superman trailer, where they're not so much doing just like single character movies anymore. It's like usually like a mix of characters, which I think like at this point is, we need it. Like you can't just, I don't know how you go back to like an individual like origin story type thing. You know what I mean?
Well, like, I think you have to do these without it being a full-on origin story. Like, clearly they'll do some sort of scene that's like, oh, this is how they got their powers, but, like...
Yeah, that's fine. Like
I don't...
You can reintroduce them without doing that.
I don't need them to be, like, an hour and a half of a 2-hour movie is just their origin.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Letterboxd has two people credited. One is Galactus and one is Silver Surfer in this movie. So like,
I did see people talking about Silver Surfer.
Well, because I remember for a period they were like, Anna Taylor-Joy is playing Silver Surfer, and I was like, fuck yes, give me it. But
that would have been amazing.
It's apparently whoever Julia Garner is.
Julia Gardner. That sounds so familiar.
She is like currently, like right now, she's the mom in that Wolfman movie that just came out. But I don't have her logged on like anything. I guess she was in The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Seems to be her most popular thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But Ralph Ineson is the voice of Galactus in it, and he was just in Nosferatu as I think the Doctor.
Okay.
And he was apparently in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I don't know who he was in that. Let's see.
I've been seeing people also like and I don't know if it's just like specifically because like my For You page is skewed towards Anya Taylor-Joy, like obviously, but I've been seeing people talk about like wanting them to like reprise her role from New Mutants.
Yeah, I saw
and, like,
some people
bringing
talking
that
about
stuff
Magic
forward.
coming back.
I would lose my mind.
I would love to see that, but I don't know how they would do that unless it's like she's just maybe part. I just make her part of the X-Men, like.
Exactly. Yeah. That's yeah.
John Malkovich and Natasha Lyonne are in this Fantastic Four movie and uncredited. Like they don't have like characters yet, and so I'm very interested to see like what they're gonna be, because there's no way they're not like John Malkovich has to be like a bad guy in that movie.
I mean,
I don't know who Natasha Lyonne will be playing, but like hopefully somebody.
I think I'm pretty sure he's in the trailer and he looked crazy.
Is he? I don't remember seeing that.
I'm pretty sure. I am pretty sure he was in it and he had like really long gray hair and he was crazy looking, and I like recognized him in the moment, but not his name, if that makes sense.
I don't
like I was like, oh, I know who that is, but I don't. Yeah.
Because I'm curious if like it's gonna be a thing where like they pay homage to like the first Fantastic Four story where it's just like the Mole Man is like the bad guy, and I wonder if they do that like, you know, Galactus shows up or whatever, because it seems like it would be real weird to just like their first fucking big battle is just fucking Galactus. But I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. I think everything is looking like it's going to be pretty good. So, but we'll just see.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Like I said, not fucking. I don't really care about Fantastic Four too much, but like, if you give me, if you're gonna give me finally a fucking good version of it, I'm in.
Yeah. It's Globrin time.
All right. What'd you watch this week?
Oh my gosh, did I even watch anything? I did. I'm like a season and a half behind on Bob's Burgers, and I finally picked that back up like yesterday. I think I've only been watching like my ghost shows, and we've been watching food stuff. Oh, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I rewatched. I saw the TV Glow at work once, and then that was about it. I've just been
I
watching garbage for this fucking project I'm doing. And then like we've just like watching bullshit on TV.
Yeah, it's rough out there. I did watch. I obviously Kitchen Nightmares a little bit.
Oh yeah, that fucking vegan restaurant episode is insane.
That show, I can't. I know that guy was probably totally real, but I just can't ever go to a restaurant if I believe it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like.
As somebody that's worked at a restaurant, I 100% believe that chef was real.
Oh my god, really gross. I do feel like they upplayed that guy being crazy and downplayed the rest of the stuff that was going on in the restaurant. Because like in the very beginning of it, so it's a vegan restaurant, great, but it's in New Orleans, and she's talking about how, was it Ida, the name of the hurricane, the last one?
Yeah, something like that.
Like came through and like destroyed half of her restaurant, and she reopened, but they didn't really like do any of the cleanup, so there was like this back like the entire back of the restaurant was just like garbage and trash, and like the patio was garbage and trash and stuff. And so like they did this like long opening of like her just like talking and interviewing or whatever, which I feel like is not super common. And then Gordon shows up and he's just like, you know, of course, does his thing or whatever. But I don't feel like he really had a heart to heart with her about like any of the hurricanes. Like, I'm sure he did, but they didn't show it. I'm like, normally they make a big show of him like getting to the root of the issue with like the owners, where she would have been like, Ida came and like destroyed the restaurant, and that's what all that is. He's just like, what's all this then? And she's like, I don't know, trash. And he's like, okay, let's clean it up. And I was like,
I feel like I'm missing some of the drama
all
here.
Of the other episodes this season have been pretty, like, heavy on that. And I just wonder if, like, it was just one of those things where, like, just maybe her story was not as interesting. Because there was one where there was, like, this family that owned, like, a, like, well-respected restaurant that got, like, destroyed in the hurricane, and then they had to, like, move the restaurant, like, 30 miles away to this other town or whatever. And, like, ever since they moved, they were like, I don't understand. Since we moved, like, just the customers here just don't like us. And, like, you know, it was that thing where they were, like, blaming the local community that they're in now. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no, like, we want them to survive. They just make bad food here. And so that was, like, a big story point. I just feel like maybe this one they were just like, there's not a lot here, and this woman is crazy, and her head chef is crazy, so let's focus on that.
I love the idea that, like, the guy was like, I've been cooking since I was able to read a box. And I was like, that doesn't give you chef experience, first of all. That would make me a head chef. I know how to cook macaroni and cheese from a box, you know what I'm saying? And he was just like, yeah. And then she's like, I just can't fire him because he's been here for like 2 years. And I was like, who the fuck cares? I did think it was really funny, though, because there's spring rolls on the menu. And Gordon was, like, interviewing one of the people who was eating the spring rolls about, like, oh, how's the food? And she was like, this tastes like it came frozen from Costco. And, like, recently, somebody in our family, like, got a box of those, like, frozen spring rolls from Costco. And I was like, they're actually delicious, though. So I don't know that that's the dig that you think it is. But
well, the problem is with a lot of that stuff, it's how you, like, make it. And they're just, like all of these restaurants is just frozen into a microwave. Yep, which is, like, no matter what, is going to not taste good.
Right, and I feel like, you know, not for nothing, but if you're going to a vegan specialty restaurant, I feel like you're probably paying, like, a premium price for, like, whatever their stuff is. Right. So if you're, like, going there and paying, like, $6 for, like, 2 frozen spring rolls, like, I'd be pretty pissed, too.
Like, at least put them in a fryer.
Seriously! That is wild to me, but anyways, whatever. Yeah, I only watched that one episode just because you.
Yeah, I was watching it, and that chef was just like, "Yeah, I'm lazy. I don't like to do anything," and I was like, "Oh my god."
I almost lost my mind when they did, like, the quote unquote, like, he showed up and was, like, just observing the restaurant for lunch. Then he, like, had a talk with that guy, like, hey, you need to, like, get your shit together. Like, what's the deal here? Like, you don't care. And the guy's like, yeah, whatever. And he was like, okay, well, I'm going to observe dinner also. And Frank was like, I'm not going to work his name was Frank, I think. Right? I don't know. He was like, I'm not going to work at double. I don't normally work at lunch and dinner. Like,
how is your head chef there not there for dinner, but only there for lunch? Like...
I don't know, because then I'm like, in my mind, because they don't address that, right? Because then I'm like, who's the other chef? Because they fire him, and then I think that Gordon maybe brings somebody in to, like, train the other people who are working in the kitchen. It was so refreshing to see, like, you know, because she had, like, some younger girls, like, working for her or whatever, for that one girl to be like, you need to fucking kick him out. Like, I don't know why, like, you're whatever. And they, like, were supporting her, and it was very sweet. But I just could not believe that Gordon was like, okay, well, I'm gonna observe dinner. And he was just like, I want to go home. Like, I'm not working a double.
I would have done the same thing.
Gordon was like, you served 12 people at lunch. You can't stay for dinner. That one was, I don't know. That is very interesting. I feel like the like, pace of the show has changed a little bit because they didn't have, like, the grand reopening the same way that they would, like, I think invite people in, but
they've been doing that, but, like, I think this one was just different because it's also, like, this one, like, shut down pretty quickly after he left.
Yeah.
And, like, the other ones, I believe, stayed open so far, so.
Yeah, I'm like, it's So is the whole season Louisiana? Is
Yeah,
that why it's called
it's all
Road
New
to the
Orleans
Super
because
Bowl?
it's just
Okay.
like
Oh, that's what
the
I
entire
yeah.
like idea is they're like, hey, like the Super Bowl is gonna be in town. You're gonna get this influx of people coming to your restaurants. So like, let's get them fixed up.
Yeah. Um. I mean, so obviously that didn't work because, like,
Yeah.
yeah, before the end of the episode, it was like she made the decision to close, and I was
I
like,
think
I don't blame
I had
you.
looked it up while I was watching the episode, and it was like their Instagram page, like the last post was like chastising people for like changing the like stuff on Google to say the restaurant was open again so they could leave them bad reviews.
That's so.
And I was like, that's pretty funny, but also shitty.
That is like a lot of effort.
Yeah, never like fuck, man. Based on like how much I've seen fucking people be insane about like Real Housewives and all of these other like reality shows, I fully believe people have nothing else better to do than fucking harass a restaurant that's already closed down.
I mean, seriously. And like the guy who was like the problem is gone. Like obviously the owner was like
Weird and delusional.
yeah, but she also seemed like she just was like going through it. Obviously, like she wasn't being like he was just like, "Hey, we need to fix this." And she was like, "Okay." And she like ended up firing that guy or whatever, and he was the one that was like being gross. She just kind of seemed like she was like enabling him. Some of the owners have been like, I don't know. I think still nothing tops that ABC place to me.
There's one this season that gets pretty fucking close.
Okay, I'll just have to watch the whole thing. From
Like
the
this
beginning.
fucking like couple that owns this restaurant, like for some reason thinks it's cheaper to buy body wash for like hand soap and stuff. So there's just like a bottle of body wash for like everyone there to like wash their hands with. It's
Gross.
fucking weird.
Okay, well.
All right, do you have a shout out?
Mm, I should have thought of something superhero related, but I feel like I've given them all.
Yeah, I don't know. I got like fucking this week has been like a blur for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Orchid's releasing a new fucking album of unreleased material, so that's exciting. That's my shout out.
Unreleased.
Yeah, it's like they're a bunch of fucking like they found, I don't know, recordings of like live practice recordings and fucking studio outtakes and shit that they're releasing that they threw up on pre-order for on Bandcamp today. So I'm excited for that, but it's like about it. I've just been fucking working and trying to not be in pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of at a point where I just have like so many things that I like have on my list to like get to that I just like haven't, so I don't have anything to recommend because I just haven't been doing anything new.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah. I've read 10 books so far this year, but I just like don't know if any of them were worth like me actually
recommending or
staking my reputation on recommending. Hello.
Hi. What?
No, I was talking to my reading app. Yeah, I don't know, not really, unfortunately.
It's fine.
We got a lot of year left though, so I'm hopeful. I'll have a banger soon.
All right. I think Rumpelstiltskin next week.
Oh!
Fucking see what Kit's availability is. So, if not, it'll be something else. All right. If you'd like to support us, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/IPSufferPodcast. I'm not sure what bonus stuff we have coming up. So, soon there'll be a lot of things because I'm recording a little side podcast that will all drop at once on Patreon before I start dropping it in the main feed, but I'm working on that. We'll do something sometime soon for February, but I'm not sure what yet. We haven't really discussed it.
Yeah.
You can leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify and all that shit. You can follow us on Instagram at Happy Suffer Podcast. You can follow Kit at Hidden Kitstery and Kitchification of Blood. You can follow Katie at Werewolfface. Katie's Patreon at patreon.com/werewolfface. You can listen to my other podcast, AK Movie Club. Maybe Katie's going to be traumatized next week. We'll see. Since you were apparently terrified of Rumpelstiltskin, it seems.
I still am.
Weird.
He's so creepy. His face is etched into my brain.
Alright, yeah, so it'll probably be that next week. I think Kit is available, but if not, it'll be something.
It'll be something else.
Something stupid, probably.
Yeah.
Alright, I hope you get punished. But why?
Punisher.